Hey, good morning, folks. Welcome back to Mark Kelly Farm. I know we haven't seen each other for a while, but I'm still not feeling 100%, and I've been doing too much sitting around, and I'm tired of doing that. So we got the shop opened up today. Got a beautiful morning going on. So we'll show you what we're going to work on. So if you remember our beehives out here, we purchased these a year and a half ago, and they were just sitting out in the grassy field. They were extra hives, and you can tell that they have a little bit to be desired. Some of these boxes are a little rough, and the lids don't fit well. So we ordered some stuff and got it in. We got some newer hive bodies. They're not brand new, but they're in better shape than these. So we want to make sure the bees got a good home to live in. So let's go in the shop and we'll get prepared to give these girls a better home. So here's a couple of our new hive bodies. We only paid $5 each. I got them from the same guy I got the bees from. He had some extra hive bodies in a barn, and he let me go through and pick out the best ones that I wanted. So we got 4 of them. And then we ordered new parts for our beehive. This is what it'll look when it's complete. This is what it'll look like. I'll show you what we got with our parts kit that we ordered. We ordered 2 of them. They come with a new screen bottom board, which I don't know if I'm going to keep this screen or not. We may go with a solid bottom board because that's all I've ever used. So I just put a piece of wood in there and close that up. Also comes with an inner top cover and then a telescoping lid with a rain cap on it and 2 queen excluders that we probably won't end up using. So we've got to get these hive bodies all cleaned up, scraped off. They've got dirt and other kinds of old beeswax and stuff on them. We're going to scrape them all off clean, and then we'll sand the outsides of them real good, and we're going to put a nice coat of paint on the outside to better protect it. You're already starting to see some weathering on the box, so the paint will keep that from happening. We don't paint the inside of the boxes. You leave them natural. The bees like it better that way. So I'm going to get to scraping, and we'll get these cleaned up so we can paint them. Alright, we got all of our boxes cleaned up. We've got our painting stuff out. We're going to start painting. Well, we got everything painted. Now it's just a matter of letting everything dry. It's drying pretty quick. It's warm and it's dry out here. So we'll give it some time. Now while we're waiting for that paint to dry, let me tell you a little bit about my bee history, beekeeping history. Out in California, I used to rescue bees. And what that means is when people would get big swarms in their yard, because when bees run out of room wherever they're at, they will swarm out and look for a new home. And when they get tired of moving, they'll rest on like a tree or something in somebody's yard, and there'll be this big ball of bees. And if I got a photo of that I can find, I'll show you. So they would generally call 911 when they'd get a swarm of bees in their yard, and the county had my number. And the county would give these folks my number, and they would call me and ask me if I could come get the bees. Now, a lot of other beekeepers would generally charge them to come get the bees. They were doing it as a business. But I would go get them for free, and just to help them with the problem and to save the bees. And by saving the bees, I mean if these people did not get help, a lot of times they'd go get a can of wasp spray or call an exterminator, and they would just hose those bees down and kill them. And I didn't want to see that happening. So I would go get the bees free of charge, bring them back to my property, and keep them there. I would give colonies of bees to local people that wanted to start beekeeping. I would get them set up and teach them how to do it sometimes. So it worked out great. Now, come our move out here in Nebraska, like I said, I gave all that stuff away except my personal gear. So once we got out here, I eventually wanted to start beekeeping again. So I was going to go catch swarms or do what I needed to do to get bees. Well, find out when I get here that bees really don't swarm a lot here in Nebraska. You don't hear a lot about it at all. If you are close to a commercial beekeeping operation, you may get some swarms, but there's not a lot of just free-ranging bees out here in Nebraska. Before I got bees, you really didn't see bees out here on the flowers or anything like that unless it was like a bumblebee or something like that. You didn't see honeybees out flying around very common at all. So we got these 2 hives of bees from my local guy here about 1.5 years ago. Got all set up. He sold them to me, gave me the boxes, the frames, everything I needed. All I had to do was go pick them up and then bring them to my property and pay him a little money. So we got them here, and I'd never overwintered bees before because in California, you don't get that cold in the winter, maybe into the 30s at the most. But here in Nebraska, we get sometimes 30 below or more sometimes. So you have to do something to help overwinter your bees most of the time. Now, I see a lot of people on YouTube do a lot of extraordinary things to overwinter their bees, wrapping them in insulation and doing some really extensive stuff to get their bees to overwinter. And a lot of times they still lose their colonies. So what I did last year before winter, because I knew we were going into winter and I needed to do something, I had some 3/4 plywood that had been left here out in the barn, and I built a shell that goes over both beehives with a divider in the middle. So inside that shell, there's not a common area. They each have their own space. And then I drilled 1 3/4 inch hole in front of each hive about halfway up the box. The box is about 28 inches tall that goes over them. And I painted it dark so it would heat up in the morning when the sun would hit it and provide a little warmth a little earlier. And my bees overwintered beautifully. Come springtime, when it started warming up, the bee activity was really good coming out of that that box. And then once we pulled the box off, when the temperatures were staying around 50 degrees at night, bees doing a phenomenal job. They were boiling out of that box, going to work. So it worked out well. So all in all, so far, our beekeeping experience here in Nebraska has been positive, and we hope we stay on that track. Now, we chose to go treatment-free on the bees. We completely leave those bees alone. So since those bees were put on our property a year and a half ago, I have not even opened the lid. I let them do their things. I leave them unmolested to do their thing. I left them all their honey for the winter, so they had plenty of food to get through the winter. Once they started flying in the spring, before anything was really blooming, I did give them some sugar syrup just to kind of kickstart them a little bit in the spring, not knowing what they had left in the box. But they did great. I just gave them 1 jar of syrup. That's all I gave them, 1 quart jar. And they've been doing great. So hopefully we continue with that success, because I don't like giving all those chemicals and stuff in the beehives. And because I don't pull honey out, they have their no natural food that they make to eat. I'm not taking it from them and giving them a substitute, which is just sugar syrup. I think they do a lot better having their own food that they make, because that's the way they survive for millions of years. So that's what we let them do. So I'll bring it back out here when that paint's dry. I'll show you how those hives go together and see how that works. All right, paint's dry and we got our hive bodies all done, and we have our new parts that we ordered. We have that painted also. I did see that forgot that the box doesn't come all the way out to the end, so I'm going to have to paint these here, these little areas. But I got more painting to do because I have some 2 more bodies coming tomorrow with frames, just in case we have any issues. So I'm going to be painting those, so I'll touch up those bottom boards at the same time. If you don't know how these things work, I'll go over it with you real quick. You have your bottom board down here with generally just a board with a 1/2 to a 3/8 inch opening. They achieve that by putting this little stick here, which holds your hive body up and allows your bees to go in and out. Now this is an entrance reducer, and it's a 2-way reducer. You see, we can give them about a 4 or 5 inch opening, or we can turn it around. Like in the winter time, we would turn this around, and then they have just a small opening down here. And that helps them. It's easier for the bees to defend that little hole instead of trying to defend this whole thing against wasps or mice or something like that. They can defend that smaller hole a lot easier. During flow season, where there's a lot of nectar flow going on, some beekeepers will leave that completely open, but some will leave the entrance reducer on there all year long, and it doesn't seem to hurt them. If you know, when bees are in the wild, they're usually in something that's just got a really small entrance, and that's all they have. So let me take one of these lids off, and we'll show you what's going on inside. So inside your hive body, down on the bottom, you see we have that screen bottom board. And that's supposed to help with varroa mites, where the mites will actually fall through the screen. And then there's a board that comes in and out of there. So all your junk and everything should fall through that screen. And then that slides back in. Now normally we've always had a solid bottom board. But the bottom hive body is called the brood chamber. That's where they lay most of their brood for their new bees in the cells. And then generally they store their honey and their pollen and everything up top. There's a little bit stored around the brood in the bottom frames, but most of your food's going to be stored up here. And different times of year, they'll move around, they'll migrate around in there and do different things. But usually the brood's down in the bottom. Now, generally you'll have a top board. It's called an inside top cover. On top of that, on top of the super, and then it's got this little notch right here, which allows the bees an upper exit where they can get out. Now, the way you open and close this, you can see this lid here. See how there's a gap underneath here? Now, when the lid is pulled to this side, that opening is open. If you wanted to close the top opening, all you got to do is slide that lid back and it closes that top opening. But during the winter, we leave this top opening open. It allows for ventilation so the condensation doesn't build up in the hive and kill the bees. Condensation is a very bad thing for bees. Now, if you're going to be taking honey off in the peak part of the season where there's a lot of honey stores coming in, you can take this inside top cover off and then take one of these, which is called a queen excluder, and you put that right here, and then you put another super on top of that. And it can either be a deep or a medium super. And the bees will store honey up in there, and then at the end of the season, you can pull off of that top super, and there won't be any brood in there because the queen can't get up there. These slots right here are only big enough for the worker bees to get through. The queen and the drones can't come up through there. So that's how that works. Then you put this super, this back on top, and then your lid, and then you're another super tall. You'll see in some areas where there's lots and lots of nectar and food for the bees, sometimes they'll get 4 supers high on some of these. But that's how they pull the honey off. You just take that whole super off, take all the bees out of it, shake them all out, and then put your lid back down here. And then 1 super of honey will generally get bees through a winter. Now, we don't collect honey here because we have a local farmer, the guy that I got my bees from. He's got a honey business, and I like to contribute to our local farmers, and we get plenty of honey from them. We don't use a lot of honey, but farm fresh honey is the best honey you can get. It's so much better than stuff at the store. A lot of stuff you get in the store is actually fake. It's just sugar syrup with a coloring in it is all it is. So you got to be careful about your honey that you buy. But I got those frames and boxes coming tomorrow, so in the next few days we're going to be rehoming those bees out there, and they'll have a lot nicer house to live in. So let's go take a look at them real quick and see how they're doing here now that it's warmed up. Yeah, they're all awake now, not working. Got a new house for you, girls. I'd tell you to start packing, but we're going to move all your furniture and stuff with you, so hope you enjoy your new place. Oh, it is warm out here. So we're going to get back inside because I'm still feeling a little bit under the weather. Get something to drink, get rehydrated. I think I'm going to take my wife out to dinner tonight. So till next time, stay safe, stay healthy. We love you guys. I apologize for not doing videos as often as I have been, but we will get back on track, I promise. So see you next video. Love you guys.